Today, we're looking at an orange ink by Callifolio Anahuac. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. There's timestamps down below so that if you are only interested in certain parts, you can skip around, but if you've got the time, please check out the entire video. Also, you can follow me over on Instagram, and if you like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Pilot vanishing point with a medium nib, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading, as in it gives some lighter areas, but this is a much darker version. The H is very dark and it works its way lighter to the C. Extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and a ton of very nice shading. The Q quick starts dark, gets light, gets very dark. Brown starts dark and gets light. Jumps starts light, gets dark, gets light again, dark again, light again, gorgeous shading, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is slightly darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and great shading. Look at brown, dark to light to dark, very nice. Over, dark and light and dark, all the way through. The starts lighter, gets darker, very nice. Look at what's going on with the camouflage-like shading in the word dog. Super nice. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us tons of color variation, and we got tons of color variation. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread. It does have halo the whole way over. No sheen, and it does offer some shading. Anahuac starts lighter, gets darker, gets lighter again. Very nice stuff. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, quite a bit lighter, with no feather spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading is very nice here. Quick starts dark, gets light, gets dark. Brown starts darker, gets lighter. Fox goes dark, light, dark. Super nice. 12 seconds to dry. Medium is the one I'm most excited for here. The medium is darker than the extra fine, just a tad lighter than the stub. It has no feather spread. It has halo the whole way over, so you do not have to write with a stub to get that very nice halo. No sheen, great shading, very beautiful shading. It's not as extreme as it could be, but it really has some nice characteristics going on here. Like, look at the word fox. It's lighter at the top of the F, darker at the bottom of the F, darker into the O, much lighter into the X. Super nice. The starts lighter and gets darker. Lazy starts as a midtone, gets darker at the Z, but much lighter at the Y. So nice. 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do not show us nearly the color variation that we get in the writing samples. Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. Not with this ink. This ink likes to shade. It goes mid-tone, light tone, dark tone, mid-tone, dark tone, all the way through one word. Gorgeous. Extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and still very nice shading. Goes mid-tone, light tone, mid-tone again. We have in Fox, it goes up at a mid-tone, down to a dark tone, light tone to O, very dark at the X. All in such a short word. Truly beautiful to look at. 7 seconds to dry. Medium is quite a bit darker than the extra fine. I think it's a little darker than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer shading, not as nice as what went on with the extra fine, but still very nice shading. The starts as a mid-tone and gets much darker. Over starts much lighter, gets very dark fast, and stays very dark. Fox starts light and works its way very gradually all the way to very dark. 10 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us some color variation far left to far right. Some. It shows us very little. We get a lot more in the writing samples themselves. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this very light brownish tone at the bottom. Now it pushes its way up. There is a light line of the brown there. It pushes its way up. We see an orange, a very nice orange, and a super bright yellow all the way across the top. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And the only real difference we're noticing is that line across the bottom is much darker and much more there. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I go immediately to the lowercase h where it gets blown out, and I don't want to use this in a note-taking situation, although the ink is beautiful. Water is lifting all of the orange and yellow tones, but leaving that kind of brownish tone that we saw in the chromatography, which does make you, take notice of it. Now, Pen Flush does everything that water does and nothing more. This is surprising because Callifolio is supposed to be very vintage pen friendly. It's not moving for the Pen Flush like that. Does draw a little bit of a question for me, but we're going to work our way through these Callifolio inks. The 1/3 bleach solution does completely remove it from the page. Now, should you need to use a 1/3 bleach solution, just make sure that you completely flush your pen with water afterwards. I did not need to use the 1/3 bleach solution to get it out of my pen. I test viscosity or flow by using a tilt test that I've linked in this video. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Callifolio's Anahuac has a viscosity of 2.26, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples. And for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Callifolio's Anahuac has an average dry time of 10 seconds, making this a faster drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Callifolio's Anahuac, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. And I was looking for a nice purple and went with Diamine's Pearl Violet. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper, black and red, and white lines. So here we're looking at it on the yellow Rhodia paper, not to see the performance so much as to see some of the color changes that occur, if any. And because of the yellow that occurred at the top of the chromatography, it made me wonder what happens if you add more yellow to this ink through its background. And it's interesting because the 1.1 looks a little bit darker. The extra fine looks unaffected in tone. The medium looks a little darker. So the yellow background is actually making this ink in general a little bit darker, although the extra fine, it still looks the same. Black and red notebooks. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and it does offer some very nice shading. Look at what's going on in the word Callifolio. Right at the O, it gets much lighter, darker into the Leo. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some fairly nice shading, like the word quick. The bottom part of the Q on the left is dark. The rest of that is nice and light. It works its way. The K becomes very dark. Brown starts dark and works its way light. over, starts light, and works its way dark. It only took 3 seconds to dry. Now the medium was quite a bit darker than the extra fine and quite a bit darker than the stub. It had no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading in its writing, not a ton. Mostly it's much darker. But the starts lighter and then gets dark. Dog starts much lighter and then gets dark, but at the end of the G it gets much lighter again. 5 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the extra fine shows plenty of color variation, and we got it. Scrubby of the medium shows none, and we didn't get nearly as much color variation in the medium. Last up is white lines. It's not made for fountain pens, but I do like using this paper. There are a number of bleed spots that occur on the medium. It does create quite a bit of ghosting. It does create quite a bit of ghosting with the medium, not too bad with the extra fine. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen. It has spots of shading, like the K in quick being much darker, the N in brown becoming much lighter than the word, X in fox much darker than the word. It's more limited in where the shading occurs, and 2 seconds to dry. Now medium is much darker than the extra fine, still darker than the stub. The medium does have some feathering that occurs. It's very small feathering. It is absolutely not distracting, but I see it on the K. I see it a little bit on the Z, but it's not a ton. It's just that it is there some. It has no spread, halo sheen, no real shading in the writing, 2 seconds to dry. Scrubby of the extra fine does show us some color variation, and we got some. Scrubby of the medium shows us none, and we got none. And that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Callifolio's Anahuac? You can get some color variation depending on your nib, and all of the writing is always very nice. It shades very nicely, and as an orange, it does lean a little bit towards brown, so be aware of that. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? I found a medium flow broad, put down a very nice tone, and really let you take advantage of the shading that this ink has to offer. If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you to subscribe. Thanks for watching.